All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 3, howdy howdy, of Black Army Radio. Myself and Mr. Joel. What's happening, Joel? How we doing this week?
Oh, what's up, guys? Oh, just another crazy news cycle. It's hard not to go to bed without getting wound up and pissed off of everything that's going on, man. It's like pretty wild, but
You
doing
don't
good though,
say.
besides that.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Right? All
Right.
right, so for those of you that may not
Uh,
know or haven't heard for some reason, so last week we did an episode on Israel and on land heritage. Once again, Israel is a state, not a religion. We're talking about a state, not a religion, just like we would with any other state. But we were also talking about how the biggest freaking naval armada in like since 2002 buildup of Iraq to freaking was sitting down there right now outside of Iran. And most people had no idea. Like it was amazing. Most people had no idea that there was this much of a buildup, especially like what we're freaking just literally like less than 6 months, what 4 months from Midnight Hammer or whatever it was that was supposedly knocked out all the nuclear facilities in Iran. And that was, I mean, you talk about a preamble compared to what's going on right now. I mean, what like what's happening right now is like, yeah, go ahead, Joel.
well, and like with the Midnight Hammer too, the report on the White House page was Iran's nuclear sites destroyed. Any other news is fake news, and that was a report. And 6 months later, they're telling us that they can make a nuke, and it could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, and they could be building a nuke, and it's just like, come on, dude. 6 months ago, you just destroyed all of their nuclear facilities, and it's just, yeah, it's pretty funny. And I don't think a lot of people realize the impact of dropping bombs on Iran and what that means for the Middle East. As you said, it's going off back there, and you've been there, you've been part of that. So definitely interested to hear your
Oh,
thoughts on
dude.
it.
Dude, it's get like we're gonna get into some of this stuff. Like for sure, we're gonna get it. We're gonna look at a lot of like what we know here. Like we don't know a lot right now. I mean, there's right now there's a blackout coming out of Israel. Okay, Israel has a media blackout. They're not like letting anybody report on anything, but Israel is getting rocked. Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, the Iron Dome is just, it ain't an Iron Dome no more. Like this shit is coming right through. And all of these interceptors, I mean, these interceptors are worth hundreds of millions of dollars per interceptor. We've given it I mean, we've given a shit ton of our interceptors to Ukraine and Israel, like our own stockpile. And wasn't even really aware of this until I started looking into it. And it's kind of scary because I mean, like, when I really think about like aggressive agitators internationally, you think about like we don't fuck with anybody that actually has a nuclear weapon. Like
Yeah,
North Korea actually has a nuclear weapon. We're not they have like the worst human rights violation since like Mao Zedong in China. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And it's like we're not going to do anything with them because they have nuclear weapons. Pakistan has nuclear weapons. India has nuclear weapons. Russia has nuclear weapons. China has nuclear weapons. Like a lot of these countries that we intentionally don't dick with at all, they already have WMD, like all these WMDs we're always talking about all the time that we're so worried about.
right,
And dude, like this stuff with Iran, they're using 20 to $30,000 drones and they're getting through $100 million interceptors, like per interceptor. And our stockpile right now, because Iran has literally just here's another thing. So when Operation Midnight Hammer happened, they did a coordinated attack against American forces. It was a coordinated attack. They literally sent an email basically to the US State Department or whatever and said, "Hey, we're going to hit here, 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 and here." It was kind of like to save face with their people to be like, we're not just going to
right,
take a punch and not swing back a little bit. And so they did some, bullshit like, they sent a few out and then they sent a few out and they saved face and then they let it go and they didn't do anything. Well, that's not what's happening right now. Like,
right,
what's happening right now is they're just, first of all, their entire leadership structure has been completely eliminated, pretty much. And here's the thing about this too. So we had people in mind that we wanted to have take over the regime because this is a regime change. I don't give a shit what Pete
Yeah.
Hegseth has to say.
100%.
This is 100% a regime change. And so it's like it has already happened. Like the Ayatollah's out, like but much of his command staff is out, like all this stuff. But we had like a bunch of people in mind that we wanted to have backfill and take over, which we usually do. I mean, we did this with Iran in 1953
Yeah.
when we took out their elected leader and we instilled a like basically an authoritarian dictatorship in Iran because they moved away from British petroleum in 1953. And it was like, no, you don't
Right.
control your own energy and resources. We control that shit. And so we're going to go ahead and overthrow your democratically elected leader in your society that's actually getting run really well and people are super happy. And then we were going to install an authoritarian dictatorship, which is what the United States did, which eventually ended up getting, as the Iranians got pissed, it led to the hostage thing in 1980 and them overthrowing that
Right.
guy and installing the guy, who came in later. Led to a whole series of bullshit. Besides the point, well, it is the point. It's not besides the point. But right now, the point is the guys that we wanted to have take over for this dude, we killed them all.
Right.
We fucking killed them all. We killed all the people like that were on deck to take over the regime. Isn't that? I mean, to me, to me that seems a little bit crazy. We're like, hey, you guys are up. You guys are up next. You're good. We're gonna hit. You guys are gonna come in. You're gonna
Right.
backfill these positions. We smoked them all. We fucking killed them all in the or the
Well,
us and the Israelis.
well, and I think one thing too with that region in Iran, like it's not just Muslims who lives there. There's a bunch of Christians. That's a really diverse region. And
Yeah.
I'm not down with everything the Ayatollah, I forget his name, the leader who got killed. But as
Mhm.
in most of those countries, the leaders are going to have some dirty fucking hands, but for the main part, like he's kept that region, Iran itself, like under wraps for the last, 15, 20 years, and hasn't there's been terrorist cells that stem from
Yeah.
Iran
Bes-
that have
Beside,
done bombings, but he hasn't
yeah,
he hasn't bombed any other countries. He's not throwing missiles, they
yeah.
don't have any proof of nuclear weapons. Israel has at least 40 to 400, but no one knows because they won't tell us, you know?
Oh, Israel's nuked up for sure. Now, back in the Iraq War, back in the day, I remember. Yeah, like one of the main things that Iran did in the Iraq War was the EFPs, which is explosively formed projectiles, which was like a really, really pretty fucked up like variation of an IED. I remember when these things first came out, and they were basically like a tube that had copper in it, and it was kinda half moon to the inside, and it had an explosive, substance, and then when it detonated, that copper would explode out and then form a really, really pointy tip, and it would penetrate a lot of our armor, and it killed a shit ton of American troops. The thing about it is it's been if we were gonna retaliate against that, we should have done it immediately. This thing that I'm hearing a lot now with a lot of guys that especially in the veteran community that were pretty pissed off, rightfully so, about all the Americans that got killed from the Iranians in that war. But it was like, hey, like why didn't we handle it like why didn't we go and handle it when it was happening? We didn't do anything.
Right,
Like when Iran was setting up all these EFPs and doing all the stuff that they were doing in Iraq against American soldiers. And I mean, hey, listen, Iraq was an unjust war. Iraq was bullshit. It was not approved by the UN Security Council. It was the opposite of that. It was not an act of self defense. Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction, regardless of what Benjamin, Netanyahu testified to back in 2002. But it was like I was in Iraq for a lot of times and for a lot of years. And it was like I remember having to deal with that and getting a lot of intelligence on that stuff. But it was like we did at the time, I mean, we didn't do dick about it, frankly,
right,
anything. And it was like if there was a time to hit them and invade them, Like, why weren't we doing it when they were killing hundreds of American troops in Iraq? We didn't do fucking anything with it. And here we are, like 20 years later from the invasion. And now all of a sudden, this is a justification for what's going on right now. And like on top of WMD and on top of what they're talking about with Israel and everything. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Well, and I think it just reeks of Iraq. Weapons of mass destruction. It's another regime change war, and we've seen how these look, and they're endless money pits. You were talking about how much money we've spent since we started playing this game with Israel and where we were, national debt before that, and that's one thing that crosses any presidency, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. They love their wars. That's where they make money. Private contract. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on, you know?
Yeah, I did I'm writing the, plug here, a little personal plug. I'm writing a, well, I'm finished with it. It's sent off to publishers. We'll see what happens. Like, but in 2001, in like August of 2001, right before 9/11, our national debt was less. It was like right around $5 trillion, a little less than that. If I remember right, I could be a little wrong. But I mean, in 20 years, we went from like it took a long time to get to $5 trillion. You're talking like there was the Cold War, there was Vietnam, there was the Gulf War, multiple world wars, a whole bunch of bullshit skirmishes all over the fucking place. And here we are, it's August 2001, right before 9/11, we're like $5 trillion in debt. All of a sudden you add 20 years of GWAT onto 2001, and what do you get? We're about $40 trillion in debt now. And
And
even before
spending.
that, like, yep, and like and spending more, obviously. And this is one of the things we're going to talk about because we were discussing our topics on what we wanted to do before, like the obvious topic that we have to talk about, which is Iran. It was about like, you know, I voted, like I said in the first podcast, I voted for Trump 3 times. I voted Republican my entire life, and it's like since I've been talking against all of these broken promises, I'm getting labeled a liberal. I'm like, why didn't you talk about Biden and Hillary and the Clintons and like all these other people? And I was like, I never voted for any of those fucking people ever. Like
Right.
no, I never voted or supported any of those people in my entire life. I supported Trump. Okay. And the reason I'm talking out against this right now is because he goddamn lied about fucking everything. Basically,
Right.
almost every single thing. And the biggest thing right now is what's happening in Iran. Because he literally, I mean, how many times have we heard in the last year, even since he's even been in office, about how he should be winning the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah. The the anti-war president. And I think too, that was one of those things where I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for fucking Biden either. I haven't voted for any president since Obama's first term. So anybody wants to attack me on this or that, I think if people vote, the people keep accountable the people they vote in, we wouldn't have this problem. And right
Mhm.
now Trump's in office. But as far as like the oh, I lost my train of thought, but
You know how many
go ahead.
different you know how many different countries the anti-Trump, the anti-war president has bombed just since he's
Right.
been in office?
7, I think.
You got
Probably more.
Iran, Libya, Nigeria, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria, Venezuela, Yemen, and then on top of that, from his previous administration, Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right.
So in Trump's two presidencies, he's bombed Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Nigeria, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen that we know of. That's actually on the books.
Well, and this is what I was thinking about earlier is I think I was talking one of the good talking points I brought up about Trump getting reelected was he didn't go to war during COVID. I mean, he did some bombings, but his spending overseas when it came to like real warfare stuff was small. But now I start to think about that and how much of that was a product of COVID. He was making his money. He didn't need war to make it. Money was getting made during COVID hand over foot, He didn't need the war to make the money, And it's one of those things that um
Yeah,
I talked about Trump as a good thing is like he wasn't doing that, and I think that was purely just a product of COVID.
it might have been. So as of right now, We have 4 Americans dead so far. 4 Americans killed. And like, I always wanna talk about the human cost because economics and geopolitical warfare and just war theory and all the stuff that goes into these war games and simulations, and what's kinda lost in translation, at least, for the peasants, is is the human cost of this. And so we've lost 4 we've lost 4 individuals so far that we know of, and I'm guessing that number is probably higher right now. There's 4 that was 3 yesterday, then and there was a whole bunch that were hurt, and then one of them succumbed to their injuries. And Trump basically came out and said, "Hey, expect more casualties. Like, expect more American casualties." And right now, like, all across I mean, not even just the United States, like, the fucking world. I mean, there's yeah, our allies are praising this stuff. Like, you have even the Canadians, like, the Canadians are praising it, the English are praising it, like, most of the NATO forces are praising it, but it's only in the leadership. Like, the
Right.
general population of all of these countries, including Canada, the United States is overwhelming. You're talking 70 to 80% on any given, whether you're talking about right leaning, left leaning, and I'm not a big poll guy at all. But it's like this is everybody you talk to for the most part. I mean, this is so far outside of the bounds of what we as a people expected after electing Trump, that to think that 70 or 80% of the population in a representative democratic republic could be against something. And then basically the administration has gotten to the point to where they're not even trying to convince us of it anymore.
Right.
Like, they're not coming out there and being like, "Hey," other than the fact that they're saying that, once again, Iran is trying to get nuclear weapons that were supposedly destroyed just a few months ago. I mean, I'm having dude, I just gotta be I mean, I gotta be honest about this, and it's like I've tried to be just really, really down the middle when it comes to Israel and stuff like that, but we have a clip that will eventually show of multiple senators, Republicans and Democrats, basically talking about how we're doing this for Israel, for the state of Israel. Once again, we're we are extinguishing American lives and spending American treasure for the benefit of the Israeli state after we have fronted them billions and billions and more money than any other country that has existed in the history of humanity that we're aware of for financial reasons. And then on top of that, we have killed a hell of a lot of our men and women for this state. And it's continuing. And now it's not just continuing. We're pushing through to something else right now. This is the beginning of something. Obviously, this shit isn't over with because as we're sitting here talking right now, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Bahrain, Dubai, our embassy in Saudi Arabia, other places are getting fucking hammered.
And
Hammered.
and wasn't this just on top of Afghanistan and Pakistan going at it too? Like, didn't that just go off as well?
Yeah, there was an embassy assault. And here's another thing. So this was supposed to be listen, I'm America for I thought I was voting America first. That's the thing. Like, that's really what it comes down to. When I talked about in the last episode, at the very end of the last episode, when I talked about reinvesting in the American project, I thought I was voting for an America first agenda, man. Like, just like economically, militarily, like family wise. I mean, and we are so far removed from any kind of America first agenda there is literally nothing that separates Trump from any of the worst international relations presidents that we've had before ever. And in Pakistan and Afghanistan, we're having embassies that are getting raided now because people are going to feel emboldened to this stuff. And so Iran, and I said this before, Iran is not a threat to the United States. Obviously, because if Iran was a threat to the United States, we would be receiving fucking missiles right now. New York, Miami, like especially, over on like we would be receiving something. If they had the capability to hit
Right.
us in any kind of way, shape, or form, the way that they're hitting everybody else in the Middle East right now, and they're make no mistake, they're fucking up a lot of places in the Middle East right now. They really are. A lot of places. Only places that have American bases or are receiving American money is allies, right? And also these places expect American protection. Here's another thing. We have a base in Bahrain, right? Big, huge naval contingent there. There's multiple special operations aspects that are attached to it. And as soon as this shit started happening, were we defending those places? Fuck no. We were pulling out immediately. We were trying to pull all of our people out right away, and we're defending Israel. So now we have all of these states like Bahrain, Dubai, the Arab Emirates, like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, that we've invested a lot of the military bases in and a hell of a lot of money, labor dollars, our fucking tax dollars, and we're not defending them. And they're getting fucking crushed right now because we're pulling all of our resources to try to defend Israel, which is also getting crushed right now. Israel's getting fucking crushed. Like,
Right.
even though they're not letting out information from Israel, if you go on X, formerly Twitter, there is video after video after video of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv just getting rocked. And all of these bases that we had people at that we're supposed to defend those people for having our bases there and spending all this goddamn money to have our people there and all these bases and all these different places.
Right.
We're not doing what we said we were going to do at all. As a matter of fact, we're doing the goddamn opposite of it. Go ahead. No,
Just
you go
once
ahead.
that region goes off, it's a chain effect, you know? It's not just like a war that's contained in Iran and them shooting bombs at Israel and Iran back and forth. Like that whole region is always ready to go off and something like this sets it off, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so right now I actually want to, and we're going to do a little thing here. I haven't done it before. And so we're going to share the screen here. And I want to play some videos because here I want to play this video here because this is what I voted for. I voted for this dude. Joel was smarter than me. Joel has basically said fuck the system for multiple presidential elections, and he is way ahead of the program. I'm not. Okay, I'm where he's at now. But this is what I thought I was getting right here because this is what this guy has been talking about for a hell of a long time. Even when he first ran for office, when he gave Jeb Bush the business, right? Remember when he gave Jeb Bush? I mean, dude, it was glorious. I remember when he first ran for office, it was like 2000, what was it, 16 or whatever it was, 15, I don't remember. And
Yeah,
he
that
was up there with
term.
all these rhino, old, yeah, old bald Republicans that have been around forever. And he handed their ass to every single one of them about like the military industrial complex, the economy, all kinds of stuff. And it's like, we love that shit. And it's like, that guy's gone, man. Whatever it is, whether it's Epstein, and I think it's a lot of Epstein, and we're probably going to get into this a little bit too, but we're willing to kill, and it's not my generation anymore. Like I said, I'm 45, man. I'm not fighting this war. It's like it's the guys who fought in this war's kids who are fighting in this war now. If there's going to be something big, and it's looking rough. I mean, just 24 hours after the fact, it's looking rough right now. But anyway, I'm going to play this stuff, and because it's just totally worth it.
I am the candidate of peace. I am peace. People don't believe that.
A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for a man who wants to end wars, not start them.
We do not want war with Iran. We actually want peace. The Iranians are clearly not very good at war. Perhaps they should follow President Trump's lead and give peace a chance.
Kamala's campaigning with warmongers like Liz Cheney. How do you think that is? She picks Liz Cheney, whose father virtually destroyed the Middle East. You know, Liz Cheney, she talks big. Oh, I want war. She always wants war. Every time I was with her in the White House, we should attack this nation, that nation, nations that people never even heard of. We should attack. She's a big, tough guy. She sits back in Washington. Oh, we ought to go and attack Iran, Iraq. We're going to attack everybody. That's why I broke up with her. All she wanted to do is go to war with everybody. These war hawks, they want to draft you kids to die in wars, and they will never fight themselves. You know, we'll stay around the country for 15 years, just bomb the hell out of everybody, make everybody miserable. Nobody knows why we're there, you know, the wars that never end. These endless wars that we've been in, I've gotten us out of so many. We don't want to get into wars. We're tired of fighting. I'm the only president in the last 84 years that didn't start a war. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more wars, no more wars. We will have prosperity and peace. We will have prosperity and we will have peace. Remember, I'm the president of peace. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. He's going to start a war. I said, no, no, no. My rhetoric is going to keep us out of wars. And that's what happened. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. I believe that he will attack Iran sometime prior to the election because he thinks that's the only way he can get elected. Isn't it pathetic?
No, to me, it's crazy that we're doing this on two fronts. We're at war with, or we're not at war with Ukraine, but we're funding the Ukraine war. Now we're funding the Iran war. And you were talking about how our interceptors stockpile is super low, and it's because we're funding all these wars. And most of our debt that's occurred over this last 26 years, almost 80% of it has been how we fund these wars, you know? And that's one thing where I'm going to bring this back a little bit to the ones who are getting mad because we're not sounding Republican enough or Democrat enough or whatever. Like, when people realize that Democrats make their money by stabilizing the economy and selling scarcity, they control prices, they stabilize the stock market, and then they sell scarcity. And through taxation and other stuff, that's how they control it. And how Republicans control it is through destabilizing all that stuff, trying to privatize it, and letting the people who have the money reap the rewards of destabilizing a sector. And how they both make fucking money and how they both fuck us more than anything is war. And that's the biggest thing, where like they both fuck us in different ways. If you're a Democrat, you're going to say one thing. If you're a Republican, you're going to say one thing. But what they both continuously do together is screw us over on these, especially these regime wars, you know. And we spend money, we lose American citizens, we create vacuums in these places, you know. And it's you'd think someday we'd learn from history, but apparently not.
You know who gave a standing ovation? So Trump did, and we didn't even cover it because fucking whatever. I don't think anybody even really watched it. But he gave like the longest State of the Union in history or something, like 2.5 hours
Yeah.
the other night. And you know who gave him standing ovations every single time he talked about a war with Iran? Elizabeth fucking Warren.
Yep.
All the Democrats.
Well, and these,
as soon as he was talking about bombing Iran and doing shit with Iran, standing ovation. ICE, everything else, like whatever, like, oh, he's terrible. But as soon as you talk about war, man, there is nothing that separates these two parties. The Democrats and the Republicans are in lockstep when it comes to this shit. When it comes to international relations and warfare, they're in lockstep. There is nothing that separates the Democrats from the Republicans on this at all, in any way.
well, there's a lot of money to be made there, you know. And I used when the Ukraine thing started carrying on and people were, when Biden's administration was up there, and I was like, okay, the liberals, you say Blackwater to a liberal and they start to get, all uptight because of the Bush administration and whatnot. And I was like, what do you think's happened in Ukraine? You don't think there's fucking private contractors out in Ukraine doing stuff too? It's the same thing, it's a way to launder money back and forth between two countries. And people, like, it's pretty obvious to me, but when their side was doing it with Ukraine, it wasn't a problem, but they wanted the war to stop in Ukraine, which never happened. And Trump ran on that as well, and I don't know. I get fed up.
Oh yeah. It's and here's dude, I mean, like, it's just, it's maddening, man. I mean, the Israel connection with this. And we're gonna play another clip here. And it's basically just, I've been listening to, like, Netanyahu has been talking about Israel and WMDs since the mid 1990s. And basically every clip he has talks about how they're 2 weeks away. They're 6 months away, from a full arsenal. Like, this is an immediate thing. And then before the Iraq war, immediately after 9/11, there was an opportunity there. There was a huge opportunity. And, the police powers that expanded after 9/11 from the emergency acts, after all that stuff, and the kind of, like, in a lot of ways, the taking of privacy rights that stem from it is for me, it's not just a secondary concern added on to the fact that we spill so much blood and treasure for that state, but it's the fact that we let it affect us here on the home front as well. We let it dictate policy to regular American citizens. It's not just the soldiers and the contractors and the Marines that are fighting overseas doing this stuff. It's also the American public as a whole. Just the citizenry itself that is supposed to be able to live under the belief and the structure of a certain set of administered rights that are supposed to be God-given, unless we need to restrict some of those rights in order to help another state. And the only other state that we're willing to do that for is the state of Israel. We were willing to spend all of our own treasure, all of the blood of our fathers, our generation, and our kids' generation for this cause. And it just doesn't, like, how the public feels about this, it just doesn't matter anymore at all. And part of me thinks that the whole reason this is happening now, like 9 months before the midterms, dude, we're like 9 months before the midterms, and 70 to 80% of the American population doesn't want this, and they did it anyway. Like, I have a really hard time understanding how this adds up, because the most obvious repercussion of this is going to be that the Republicans, and they were all, as far as I was concerned, we talked about this before, I already thought that they were going to get just lambasted in the midterms already. And now you do something like this when people are fucking done with this shit. Like, done with this shit. I was listening, dude. Last night, God damn. There's a guy, he's probably got, I don't know, 1 million followers or something. He's a former Navy SEAL. And he was like, a lot of people have been asking me about Iran, and I'm going to do a thing of Iran. So he did like a 10-minute thing of Iran. I can't remember the dude's name. And all he talked about was basically the Iranian hostage crisis, and about how the Iranian people want to be free, and how they've been trying to get nuclear weapons for, since like he's talking the 70s. And we've been trying over and over again to curtail them. And I was like, I'm listening to this guy, and I'm like, man, you're leaving out the entire story. The entire story of the reason why this happened to begin with. It's like, it doesn't have. Why would Iran want nuclear weapons? Even if that's what they were going after, if they somehow still had the capability after Operation like Midnight Hammer, it was because we don't fuck with any country that has nuclear weapons at all. Number one, but number two,
and their
no, go ahead.
well,
Go ahead.
and their neighbor next to them has nuclear weapons, and they always feel like they're under the constant threat of attack. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, with how Gaza was handled in the last 5 years, I kind of have it coming, and that's going to
Gaza's
make
rough,
something.
and we kind of have to yep. And as an American people, we have to own that a little bit too, because we supplied the money and the weapon systems for a lot of that stuff. And it's like,
yep.
You know, as much as if you do believe that they were committing a genocide in Gaza, then you, in a lot of ways, you kind of have to believe that we were really culpable with that as well. And I'm really 100%. Beginning to believe that myself. And so it's one of those things where it's like the never ending story, man. My entire adult life has been this shit. Like, this Middle Eastern conflict, terrorism, WMD, Israel, all the Muslims, shit. It's my entire adult, even in law enforcement and local law enforcement, it's something that we focus on, you know? And so with that being said, I think a really good thing to do is to share freaking Netanyahu talking about, just perpetually talking about how, you know, the United States or how Iran is just going to be getting a nuclear weapon. I mean, and then this is even going to get even better than that because it's going to get into Iraq. But here you go.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year. They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to. Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs. They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the rich uranium for an atom bomb. Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a day. Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years. Once Saddam has nuclear weapons, the terror network will have nuclear weapons. Next thing you'll see is a nuclear bomb in the World Trade Center. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
And it was like, Afghanistan was like the dudes that smoked our people on 9/11. They were in Afghanistan. Like, they were part of Al Qaeda, which was kind of being sheltered by the Taliban, and then like in the Afghanistan region, like right up there in the mountains of in between the Pakistan and Afghan border, up there in the Hindu Kush mountains and the Tor Boras. And it was like, we just stopped. Like, in a lot of ways, Afghanistan became a forgotten war for like a decade once Iraq kicked off. And right. Iraq, I mean, like, it had nothing to do with 9/11. There was as a matter of fact, and a lot of people don't know this, like, Saddam's regime was like a secular regime. It was a non-religious regime. And the Taliban and Al Qaeda didn't like Saddam Hussein because of that. Because they wanted more of like a monotheistic, like theocratic, religious-based regime. They didn't like the fact that Saddam Hussein's regime was not built around Islam. They didn't agree with him, as crazy as that is. And so we spent a decade just killing 1 million people in Iraq and losing a shit ton of American troops for this, literally for this lie that was testified to in front of the American Congress in 2002 by Benjamin Netanyahu on behalf of the Israeli state. Once again, the state of Israel, not the religion of Israel, the state of Israel. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Well, and I think the funny thing when it comes to these terrorist groups is throughout our history, especially the last 30 years, is we've gone back and forth funding these different terrorist groups to fight our regime wars when we want it. So 10 years, we're paying or we're working with these terrorist groups, and then a regime changes, and then we're, all of a sudden they're the enemy. And we do that all the time. And I think one, too, that disenfranchises those people against us, and it's the same thing with we'll go back to what we are going to, but with like Afghanistan, we worked with Afghanistan for forever. We got out of Afghanistan. We gave a bunch of Afghanistan nationalists, like, you could come over to America. We left you hanging. And then we kind of turned them back on. We turn our back on them, and then all of a sudden they're caught up in this deportation thing with ICE. You get one of them that's a terrorist, then you get all the bootlickers or all the people out say, oh, look at these fucking Muslims, and it's this never ending. It's because we constantly shit on these people. We disenfranchise them. We say we're going to help them. Then we leave them out to dry, you know?
Oh yeah, we did that. We did that, after World War One with the Ottoman Empire when the British accepted the Balfour Agreement and scrapped the Arab Agreement right after that. I mean, it's been going on for a
Right.
really, really, really long time, and that entire region, it's just it's so on fire, just perpetually, just constantly. And like the stuff, what's maddening to me looking back in my career, and I didn't know any better at the time, really. I mean, at the time, I was a kid, and like we all were. Even like our super duper leaders doing like super heroic shit. We're all like kids in their 20s.
I think one of the favorite things you say, and some people, or I've heard you say, and some people get lost in this in the military, and they have this just shitty look on a soldier or anti-war, is like when you said training to go play basketball. Like there's some people who are just there, they've been in training forever, and like they're just ready to go. Do me what I'm here for. They're not thinking about the bigger political ramification when you're 21. Like you've been training, like let's go, and I think that's something where hindsight's really interesting, hearing somebody who's went through it and has seen this all from like the worldview like you have. I think is something that's really valuable, especially to our listeners.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know what's, what I'm starting to notice, and this is, I've never been a guy in my entire life, man, that has ever, in any kind of way, like put shade on somebody who didn't serve ever. I've
Right.
never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, ever judged somebody for not serving, in the global war on terrorism that was, in my age group, ever. I've never given anybody shit for it. I've never given anybody a hard time for it, ever. But what I'm starting to notice, and what's really kind of pissing me off with this war with Iran, is I'm seeing a lot of guys that I went to like high school with, or that I kind of know or knew, who are my same age. I'm around 45. And they're just like, fucking bomb Iran, fuck them all, kill everybody, kill everything, invade, put in ground troops, like retribution, like WMD, nuclear weapons. And I think, like, for the first time in the last 20 years, I'm starting, like, I really want to say, if you didn't fight in the first fucking war, like, you don't have any business, as far as I'm concerned, talking about this one. You know what I mean? And I kind of don't like that about myself right now. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you about that. Like, it bothers me that I feel that way. It really bothers me because I feel that way, because I took a lot of pride in the fact that I never judged anybody on that, and I don't think you ever should, because everybody has whatever reasons. Everybody's living some kind of life, man. Like, nobody knows what's going on with people. I never judged anybody for shit like that. But when I'm seeing 40-year-old men who I know for a fact didn't serve, they had 20 fucking years to go stack bodies for the US of A,
Right.
for the red, white, and blue. If they wanted to go, if they were so pissed off at Muslims or Iran or whatever, they had 20 fucking years. 20 years. where they could have, as a matter of fact, they had so goddamn long in the last war to do that there were dudes who served like early in the war, 2001 to 2003 to 5, that had kids at a young age who served with their kids at the end of the war.
Right.
20 years later, they're at the end of their enlistment. They've served 22 fucking decades fighting in this war, whether they were in Afghanistan or Iraq or skirting into Pakistan and Syria or doing some other shit. 20 years. And here they are deploying with their 19-year-old boy. And dude who was in Ranger Battalion, who's now going down to like the 82nd Airborne or like the 1st Cav or some fucking regular infantry unit so he can serve with his kid who's deploying in the war that he's been fighting in for 20 fucking years, basically. Pretty much nonstop. And I see these guys, man, that are just like, love it or leave it, love it or leave it. You know, will like super willing to fucking train at home, buy all their fucking ARs and all their plate carriers and all their tactical gear and all their shit and post all their stuff on Facebook. Didn't do a fucking day in the military. Not one fucking day. And they're telling us, and they're telling us that these guys got to fucking deploy to Iran now to fight another war in the same goddamn area, basically for the same bullshit reason as we did 20 years ago. And these fuckers that are 40, 45 years old now still aren't fucking enlisting. They're not joining the goddamn Marines or the fucking Army or going to war. No, go ahead.
ICE will take. The good news is, though, ICE will take them.
ICE will definitely take them.
I had to get that jab in there.
Sure. That'll be a way easier way to get into it, man. That's for sure.
Well, and that's where, like, there's a bunch of phony patriotism in this country where it's like this red, white, and blue. And I love fucking America. This isn't a rip to go against America, but there's a bunch
being a patriot doesn't mean you have to agree with your fucking government on everything. That's another thing. Or your side.
Exactly.
It's the Bloods and the Crips, bro. The fucking the Democrats are fucking Crips and the Republicans are fucking Bloods. It's as simple as that. It's really gotten to that point. Like, we have gotten to the point to where we are doing inner city fucking gang warfare because we are so hooked on our side that you are willing to blind yourself on what your expectations and what your demands were for why you fucking back somebody to begin with. And then when that person gets in office, you feel the need to defend that individual at the expense of your values. You will defend that motherfucker at the expense of your own values because that's who you voted for. And that means more to you than what the actual outcomes associated with that individual are.
Right. Well, and that's where I think too, like, you hear, this is going to take a weird turn real quick, but I think it's tied into like the social side of it, is some of this, like, I always say, like, I don't mind a Christian, especially a Jesus Christian, like somebody who's a Jesus Christian, but there's this weird Christian nationalism undertone to America that's tied into, like, the people in the church standing up for Trump knowing he's a bad guy. Like, he's cheated on every wife he's had. And they say, well, he's God's messenger and there's sin and, you know, and like this, where empathy is now like a bad quality to have as a man. It's not masculine. I was watching this preacher from Pete's Headsets Church talking about how empathy is like a cancer and Christians don't need to be empathetic, you know, and like all this stuff, what is actually, from my understanding of what Jesus taught, goes against what he was saying, you know, and this undertone of phony patriotism tied to Christian nationalism, and I don't believe every Republican thinks that way, but the stuff they're being spoon-fed is from those type of people. So it's hard not to have that narrative a little bit when you're thinking about it, you know? And the lefts have their own fucking set of ideologies that I don't agree with. That's a whole nother fucking topic, you know? But I feel like that's one of those things that a lot of this election was won on, nationalism with the um, immigration thing, some of the war stuff, but I think the core of his constituency was voting on immigration and transgender stuff. And the right
Oh,
kind of
well,
changed
yeah.
this.
I think
The
with the independent vote, I think the independent vote for sure. The independent vote, like the transgender shit and the COVID, like it gone. And here's another thing, man. Like Epstein died when Trump was in office, not when
yeah,
Biden was in office. And it took me a second to kind of realize that because I kind of forgot about that when I think about like Epstein. You know what I mean? And
yep,
whether or not he was smoked professionally. And people are smoked professionally all the time. Don't make any fucking mistake about that, people.
yep.
Like, you want to
Just
put your
talk
head
to
in the
the
sand,
Clintons.
fine, fine. But people are smoked professionally all the time. There's professional killers all over the fucking place, and it doesn't cost much. Like, people are smoked professionally all the time. Like,
For
the
one
fact
sec.
that could happen is not like that surprising that could happen. You know what I mean? But like these connections, like when I look at Trump, dude, like I can't understand how far removed he is now from what he talked about in the campaign. And
Yeah.
I'm not like you because I wanted to have faith in this outcome. And I was really hoping that he would be angry enough at the establishment because of all the charges that had been thrown against him and having to fight for years and years and years to stay relevant and to not to be in prison and everything else, like that there would be like America first outcomes that would be associated with this. And it's becoming very, very, very apparent, man, that that's not the intention of this administration in any way, shape, or form. There's no intention of having an America first economy. Here's another thing. So we just did this shit with Iran. You know what? Iran has shut down all of the shipping in that region. Basically all of it. So when you think about everything that's related to oil, everything that's related to construction, to transportation, to energy, so Dubai basically lost their fucking airport. I mean, not only did their downtown area just get smashed, their fucking air. As far I heard their airport's gone, and it's like we have massive amounts of energy that gets transported through that whole area all the time, oil especially. And it's like if you're, I mean, not just an American citizen, but just like a regular person living pretty much anywhere that's trying to fill up their like gas tank or pay for their heat. Like everything is about ready to go through the fucking roof, bro. I mean, through the roof. They have shut down every fucking thing in that
Well,
entire area.
on on top of what Trump's doing with trade, like Canada and 40 other countries just signed like a $4 trillion this huge trade deal. So not only are we with trade, are we pushing our allies back? Like there's a lot of weird global economic things from this war that I don't think people realize the impact from what you said on top of us souring our relationships with our allies with the trade deals, And I think that's one of those things that like not a lot of people talk about. And the fucked up problem is like all these other countries own our debt. What happens when they say they don't want to own our debt anymore? That hasn't even happened yet. If that happens, we're fucked.
We lose the world's reserve currency
Yeah.
is what could happen. And then like you could end up having and this is a real thing. And like people in the United States are super sheltered. We talked about this before, right? Like Canada's north, Mexico's south, like people, whatever. Mexico's not a fucking threat in any kind of way, shape, or
Right.
form to the American Republic to any way, shape, or form. Neither is the Atlantic Ocean, neither is the Pacific Ocean. Like we're very, very, very sheltered here. We don't understand outcomes the way that a lot of other people in a lot of other places do. We haven't experienced it, especially within the last few generations. And so it's like when you talk about like the price of energy and a lot of this other stuff, like there's stuff we have not felt what we're gonna feel at all. And I tell people, I'm like, you better go fill up some fucking gas tanks right now. Like, you better go take some fucking 5-10 gallon gas jugs to the gas station and start filling that shit up. I mean, where I live right now, it's like $3.50 a gallon already, and it hasn't really gotten any better since Trump's been in office. It's been just as fucking bad as it was when Biden was in office. I haven't felt any kind of economic relief with Trump at all. I haven't. I haven't felt any economic relief, and nobody I talk to has either. You know, and this is another fucking problem because it's like it's the economy, stupid. That's why you got elected. You didn't get elected to go to war with fucking Iran. You didn't get elected to go to war with Venezuela. You didn't get elected to bomb a bunch of fucking wannabe drug boats off the coast of Venezuela that aren't even goddamn really doing anything compared to what Mexico is doing. It's not why you were put in office. You were put in office for the fucking economy. That's it. Period. The end. For the American fucking people, because we want to keep our goddamn money and we want to fucking have a good life. Like, invested into our children and into our own personal outcomes that we invest in as families and individuals. And it's like there seems to be just zero desire. And so I'm like, what's the connection with, and then with all this Epstein stuff, it's like, how could we not think, if you're a normal motherfucker out there, like just thinking normally, and all that shit comes out, and it's like, there's a lot. I mean, I don't know how many people out there have actually really, really looked into the Epstein files and the real serious. I mean, Janine Maxwell's dad, his fucking wife's dad, was honored by the entire state. The president of Israel went to his fucking funeral. Like, the Mossad was there. He was buried in one of the holiest of holy places in the entire Israeli state. It's like the connections that we're starting to see now, and the fact that this Epstein stuff was getting hot and heavy, and now all of a sudden that the Epstein stuff gets hot and heavy with Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, and they're able to get this stuff out, and people are like, you're getting Nancy Mace coming out, and you're getting all these other Republicans and people that are starting to come out and being like, this is terrible, this is horrible, like kind of separating even from Trump a little bit. And you're like, hey, these assholes are literally willing to kill our kids to stop this shit. They're not only are they willing to fuck our kids, obviously. That's what they're willing to do for that, for sure. But they're also willing to kill our kids. It doesn't just stop at having their way sexually with them. It also has to do with the fact that they're willing to fucking murder them on the field of battle if shit gets weird. And that's what's happening right now, for sure. Like, I think that this big thing with Iran, because it goes so hard against everything that Trump has ever represented for the last however 10 years since he originally ran. In almost every video you dig up on him when it comes to war, he really talked a lot about being anti-war. I mean, a fucking lot. And this shit does not add up to me. It doesn't fucking add up to me. Like, I really, really think that, like, the Epstein files is the smoking gun with this shit. And what we're really finding out is all these conspiracy theorists, all these QAnon people we thought were retarded, and the Pizzagate stuff and everything else. And you're like, you got to take a step back and you got to look and you got to be like, listen, there's probably so much more evil happening behind the scenes that we could ever be willing to fucking, like, even really investigate and accept, because it's so atrocious. Go ahead.
Well, and I think some of this too is, like, if you look at it and you just look at, for instance, the visceral hate the Democrats have for Trump, and you look at the visceral hate Republicans have for the Clintons, and they're protecting each other. Ghislaine Maxwell came out in her last interview before she got moved to the fucking, like, the nice prison. She came out saying the Clintons and Trumps did nothing wrong. Trump and Hillary, or Bill and Hillary, came out saying, oh, we were just there, we knew nothing wrong. Trump goes, oh, I knew of him, I just was kind of his neighbor, I didn't really have any, like. And that's the whole thing when you look at those Epstein files, and not just talking about the pedophile shit, the money wire transfers from back and forth, they're protecting each other. And we need to quit looking at this from a Republican Democrat thing. This is the Epstein class and the Davos class versus the rest of us. They're starting these wars. You could go going back to the regime change in Iran in the 50s, there's ties to her father to what happened in Iran following that war. You know, this goes so far back, you know?
Dude, Iran in the 1950s was a democratically elected fucking women were running around in skirts with their hair done. Like it was fucking America in the Middle East in a lot of ways. It was really awesome. Same thing with Afghanistan and a lot of those places. And it's like the United States. I don't give a shit what Mr. Homeboy Navy SEAL had to say on his 10-minute whatever. And he just wanted to discount the fact that we completely installed an authoritarian dictatorship over the people that what did the people end up doing? They ended up rebelling against him. And that is how the guy who just got smoked got into power. It was from a revolt by the people. It wasn't from a revolt by a fucking military or anything else. It was the people revolting against the American-centric administration that we had forcefully put upon them in 1953 when we took Mossadegh and we kicked him out of there because he wasn't willing to keep British petroleum in Iran. That's how this shit started. It didn't start in the 70s when they decided that they wanted to kick that guy out who was an American proxy. Like the guys that I'm listening to right now that are talking about this stuff are completely leaving out the fact that he was an American proxy. We installed him. We did. It wasn't the Iranian people. We fucking installed him into power. No shit, they revolted against that. We would do the same goddamn thing. If the Chinese came to the United States, even for Trump and all the shit and everything going on right now, and they did it their fucking way, like more than likely the American people aren't going to be cool with it. And you know what? 50 years later, we're still going to remember it. It's not going to be like it's just going to be great. And here's another thing. All that stuff that's going on in Iran with the liberation and everything else, it's like, I can't trust any of this shit. I don't trust fucking any of it. I was in Iraq when we were supposedly liberators, and I didn't feel like we were fucking liberators there. And I definitely didn't feel like we were liberators in Afghanistan either. There wasn't and I was deploying in Iraq and Afghanistan from the beginning of the goddamn war all the way to 2013. And it was like, I've never once felt like the people looked at us like we were liberators. I felt like these people looked at us like they wanted to fucking kill us all the time. I never, like very rarely, other than kids asking for job breakers and free food and water and shit. Like when you look at the grown-ups, when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan at any given time when we were supposedly liberators, I was never looked at like a fucking liberator. Ever. That is so much bullshit. I mean, maybe that's going in Iran in Iran a little bit, but it's like I don't really trust that much. I don't fucking trust that being said because I've been in those places when we were supposedly those people, and that was not how we were fucking treated.
Right. Well, and I think that's a real hard thing with the Middle East because that place has gone through just millennia of religious wars and just non-stop turmoil and regime changes, and like I don't think there's a right answer, and there's always going to be a side that's happy about it. You know, like the first thing you see on CBS this morning was you see 4 interviews of Iranian nationalists who are celebrating the attack. And then you see one interview with like the least well-spoken person they could find talking about how they're against the attack. They're Iranian national who is against the attack, you know? And also what's going on with our media right now with the, it's a crazy hostile takeover, you know, as far as Gary Ellison, he's a Christian Zionist who promotes Jerusalem or Israel super hard. He's buying all of our major news, Netflix, like he's going to have over 75% of our news and media, you know, and that's crazy.
It was like the TikTok takeover, you know? I mean, like TikTok got taken over by a real, you know, like Israel-centric outfit, and they're monitoring the speech on that platform. And I think, you know, the next thing we're going to have to be really, really cautious about as a people is our free speech here in this country. And I think that, you know, you look at our platform and other platforms that are questioning the narrative like this, we're going to have to, I mean, if we're going to value, and I talked about this, I really believe that the Bill of Rights is so foundational in our country, and it really sets us apart from a lot of these other societies that value freedom, that are democratic, Republican democratic societies. And I think it's going to be coming under real assault here pretty soon, because to have 70 or 80% of the population vehemently disagree with the military action and have that action take place anyway, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be dissenting on this. A lot of people. And,
And
it's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to, it's going to be, there's a battle that's going to be taking place that kind of has already been taking place, especially in the last year, about free speech in Israel. And, for those of you that didn't hear our second episode, I'd really recommend you listening to that second episode, because we really identify the difference between what a state is and what a religion is, and what land heritage truly means. And the fact that we're willing to not only spill our blood and treasure for a completely different state, but the fact that we're willing to change our constitutional rights as well for that state is a bridge way too far for me. It's
well,
way too far.
Well, and I think some of the stuff that's going on just around the First Amendment. So you look at some of the language Trump changed in his what is now a domestic terrorist. You look at this war, you look at the ICE stuff. According to the government, I'm a domestic terrorist because I speak out against Christianity sometimes, or will have a strong opinion about it, as I do as Muslims or Jews. I speak out on most organized religion. But I mean, right now, how we're talking about Israel, like, if you look at the literature of the language they've changed, like, we're domestic terrorists, and that's the crazy, and I don't think we are, but how far is that going to get pushed when one of these becomes something that is this, and that's a slippery slope with the First Amendment, because people often on either side saying, well, they're stepping on our First Amendment, like how the media censored some of the COVID stuff, oh, they're stepping on our First Amendment. I was mad about that. Our First Amendment is our First Amendment, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And I'm tired of both sides weaponizing the First Amendment as well. Cool.
All right. So, like, in what we were saying too, I was looking so a lot of the media stuff coming out of Israel right now is super contained. Israel's a democracy, but like I said before, you can't marry outside of your religion in the state of Israel without permission. It's kind of a democracy. There's a lot of other aspects too that are not democratic as you would think, like the United States in a lot of ways. And a lot of it is media. So media is another thing. Like, they don't have like a First Amendment that gives you free speech and all this other stuff, for, freedom of the press. And there's like the stuff that's coming out of the Israeli state right now is getting leaked out primarily through X. And man, I wouldn't be surprised if these numbers are, I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking thousands and thousands of people dead. Forget about, I think Iran's going to have thousands and thousands of people dead for sure. I really do. We were hitting Iran to a point to where, like, if you looked at, Tehran, like the mountains were totally lit up and it was all downtown. We were hitting everything and we were hitting like normal. We had a fucking school of kids. Like, we killed like 100 little girls, and that shit, I fucking hate that shit. And to have that happen at the very beginning of the war is unacceptable to me, because there's too much fucking intel at an initial strike to allow something like that to happen. Now, if that happened, 3 months, 6 months into something like that, it's not that would be acceptable, but people could explain it away better. You explain it away better. You're in the heat of the moment. Forces have moved around. You're not sure where everybody is. Shit changes like on a chessboard in war pretty fucking quick. But it's like to have your initial strikes smoke that many civilians, especially just fucking kids in hospital. Like, it reminds me so much of Gaza, man. Like the way that they were smoking hospitals and schools, the same thing was happening in Tehran. They were smoking hospitals and schools, and like that's devastating to me as on a human level. Like I don't overlook that stuff. I don't look at, but so like the amount, like 100, I can't, I mean, I got two 13-year-old girls, man. You know what I mean? Like I relate to this shit. I don't just overlook civilian casualties like that. I don't just overlook 100 dead schoolgirls. Like, oh, it's just a fucking cost of war. Well, maybe it was a cost of war if it was 6 months from now or 3 months from now. We got ground forces on the ground and like shit's fucking evolving fast. This was an initial strike. An initial strike. There's no reason for us not to have good fucking intel on a goddamn women's girls' school and then kill everybody in that fucking school on the very first strike. Like shit like that to me is unacceptable. I don't give a fuck. Like you can't explain that away to me on any kind of rational level at all, not on an initial strike. Maybe you could talk to me about it down the line and we could have a conversation. We could have a conversation about it. Not that I'm going to agree with you, but I'm goddamn sure not going to agree with you on the initial strike, having the intel be that fucking bad, where you're hitting schools and you're hitting hospitals again. And we're supposed to be liberated. Like everybody's going to go to the liberation end on this. All of my super duper conservative friends that are like former military and whatever, and they just can't fucking get off the fact that they just can't bring themselves in any way, shape, or form to say anything bad about Trump, no matter what. It's like even that for those guys is that's like a difficult thing to explain away. It's a difficult thing to explain away because if you know anything about intel at all, when you're going into an op like that, the fact that that was that fucked up is a really big deal. That's a big fucking deal.
And I think too, some of that, and like the guys who are saying that personally, and I could be wrong, and I don't want to generalize, and I know not every conservative is like this, but when they see someone from Middle East, something popped on my screen. When they see somebody from Middle East, they're seeing a Muslim. They could see somebody, unless they had a yarmulke on, like they're going to see a Muslim person. They don't know, as long, like brown people are dying, they're Muslims, but if there was somebody from Jerusalem and somebody from Iran standing next to each other outside of the headwear, they wouldn't know the fucking difference. They would just say, oh, fuck, and that's the thing. What gets me is like people have no idea about either culture. They have no idea. They just see we're so far removed from it. They get the stuff that we see on media, mainstream, terrorism, all that stuff, which is all real in a reality. And I'm not anybody who wants to kill innocents, as far as I'm concerned, under a name of a god is fucking that's one of the reasons I dislike religion, because people will justify that type of shit based on their religion, and
it's amazing what people can justify with religion. It's really amazing. It's really amazing how people can justify inhumanity at a biblical level for religion. I mean, even biblically, if you look in the Old Testament, like a lot of the Old Testament is a lot of like Hebrews killing Hebrews, like Jewish people killing Jewish people, like full out assaults on city states, being like God commands this Jewish people to violently eliminate every single man, woman, and child from this Jewish village because they did something that Yahweh didn't approve of. There's a lot of the Old Testament. And I think a lot of that, because when you look at the religious aspect, when you think about the Old Testament, I think that's a lot of justification for what goes on today, if you think about it. Because when they cite a lot of this religious stuff, I mean, the Old Testament is extraordinarily violent. It's wildly violent. Like if you really read it and investigate it, compared to the New Testament, wildly. It couldn't be too different. They couldn't be more different than they are. And so when you do that and you think about people that really adhere to those kind of values and they think, well, Christians can kill Christians as long as it's the right Christians killing the bad Christians, or the Jews can kill the Jews if it's right or wrong. it like how far do we have to really go to be like, yeah, we could obviously kill every single fucking Muslim on planet Earth then. If we can kill people of our own religion because they're not the right people of that religion, then of course you're going to look at others, air fingers quote the others, and easily discount their entire, not just their individual lives, but their families' lives, their entire family's life, their kin, their entire bloodline at that point becomes cancel. Like you can cancel it at that point. If you can do it for your own people because they said or did the wrong thing, according to you, then you're absolutely going to be willing to do it to people that don't look like you. Like that wouldn't be an unusual thing to think.
Right. Well, and the thing what sucks is because I don't think this is how the books were supposed to be taken. And I mean, after you read some of them, and I think you have a better depth just due to your history major in some of the religious books.
Oh, there you are.
And I
You're
wonder
back.
how much of one of the things I find interesting with you is you having a history major, going back to school to finish up your history major, and how much of learning history, because I think everyone thinks they have a good base of history, but actually digging into history, like how much of that has helped formulate some of your perspectives on these things, like in the last, like the recent past, like where has your head outside of policy and like Trump fucking lied to me, has any of your views on studying that stuff changed your outlook on some things?
Oh yeah, I've had.
And that's a question.
I've had a couple epiphanies. Yeah, I've had a couple epiphanies. I was challenged in school by a great professor named Shawnee Daly, who he did a great job challenging me to a lot of my ideals when I was kind of in that inner, like that tweener. I was contracting still, and I was going to school at the same time, and I was out of the military, and um, he was a very centrist, slightly conservative leading professor, political science guy, and he challenged me in a lot of ways to really, really investigate a lot of the founding documents, because I think what a lot of people that call themselves constitutionalists today miss is they're kind of like, I would like commercial constitutionalists, right?
Yeah.
You're really good if you can talk about it for 30 seconds or a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes. But when you really start getting into like what the ideals of the founders and why the Bill of Rights was so important, when you really start looking at it, it goes against a hell of a lot of even the more conservative values we're kind of taught to revere. And a lot of people that are conservatives just by default kind of think of themselves as constitutionalists, right? Because they're like traditionalists, like constitutionalists, conservatives, traditionalists. In a lot of ways, they like to put themselves in the same kind of sphere, but it's like the deeper you get into that stuff and the deeper you start to read it, you find out interesting things, like a lot of the founding fathers didn't even believe in a standing army, didn't even believe in a standing military, because they were worried that could be weaponized against the people. The separation of church and state, the deist leanings of the founding was really eye-opening to me. Like, I didn't even know what deism was until I had to really, really look into it. And then I found out that I was like, holy shit, deism is huge in the founding. I mean, like, deism is basically the belief that there is a God, but that he doesn't intervene in the world. That's pretty much what deism is. Like, certain aspects of deism could believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ. Certain aspects of deism doesn't. Like, for example, like Thomas Paine and The Age of Reason. The Age of Reason is probably one of the best books that was ever written in the history of forever. And if whoever's out there hasn't read The Age of Reason, who was written by Thomas Paine, who basically pretty much, I mean, Thomas Paine cleared the way like a bulldozer for the revolution. His book, Common Sense, which is really a pamphlet, which was published in 1776, was the first bestseller that we ever had over here in the in the Americas. And it was a call to arms, basically for individualism and individual rights, and removing yourself from like the apparatus of the state in a lot of ways. And Thomas Jefferson was one of Thomas Paine's best friends. And when he wrote The Age of Reason, Thomas Jefferson literally told him, like, don't fucking publish this shit. The church will kill you. I mean,
Right.
when he wrote it, he published it, but he waited for a long time until he was like in the 70s or 80s for his like last chapter of that book, because he really, really takes the church to task big time in that book. And I think it was like the late 1700s that he published the first part of it. And it would have been the early 1800s that the last part of it came out. But I mean, for me, the more I started investigating those roots that are hidden in a lot of ways from us, you have to get in there. You know what I mean? You got to get dirty. You got to read a lot. You got to spend some time understanding like how all these sects kind of worked. It wasn't just a revolution that started this country. It was an idea. You know what I mean? And like the fact that they were able to pull it off, to me, especially when you look at at like comparisons globally, is, man, it was one of the greatest acts historically that you could ever document. It is crazy that it worked. It's crazy that the Bill of Rights. I mean, forget about the Constitution, all this other shit. You can scrap a lot of stuff based on what our government has done. But the fact that the Bill of Rights has been able to hold on this long, I mean, it's the Bill of Rights for me is really like, that's the moneymaker. That's the stuff that we can really individually point to, like with your families, with your property, with your retirement, with your outcomes, with what you value, what our country's supposed to hold dear, is really found within the Bill of Rights. You know,
Right.
and it was one of the coolest documents, dude, that I think has ever been written. They just did it in a really, really, really good way. You know, in a really, really good way that it's been really hard for a lot of tyrannical style regimes in America to get away they have not been able to scrap it yet. And it says a lot about that document, because there's been a lot of constitutions internationally in France and England where they've gone through civil wars, like the Magna Carta in the 1200s, John Wycliffe, like at 1000. This is a completely different thing we can get into, like the origins of liberty and how that even happened, you know?
Right.
But a lot of these other outfits that have had these constitutions, they've scrapped them from the Enlightenment area. And this is at the birth of the Enlightenment in England or in Europe, and they've had to scrap those documents repeatedly. And we have somehow, some way, since 1776, at least with the Bill of Rights, been able to hold on to that somehow.
Right.
And it's been under a lot of assaults, and especially since 9/11. And it makes me think a lot of certain kind of things about 9/11, because the one document in the United States that has been under direct assault since the fucking terrorist attacks on 9/11 has been the Bill of Rights.
Right.
Massively.
And not to go down this wormhole, but even the ties to 9/11 in Israel, outside of saying, and that's a whole nother tinfoil hat thing that I don't know where I stand really, because I've looked into it a lot and I'm like, maybe not, but yeah, it would make sense, I guess, you know. And
a lot of that stuff's hard
and
to nail down.
yeah, it is. It is. And then if you talk about it, you're accused of being a tinfoil hat, or, you know, you can't even have the conversation, you know, which is unfortunate.
Dude, our tinfoil hat brothers and sisters out there have been they're batting like fucking 900 right now. They're in the Hall of Fame. You bat 300, you're in the Hall of Fame, homie. You bat 300, you're in the Hall of Fame forever. Like, that's fucking it. You're enshrined. You got a brass fucking statue. You're enshrined in the Hall of Fame. Like, we're conspiracy theorists, whether you're talking about even QAnon, Pizzagate, fucking JFK, MLK, MK Ultra, like the Tuskegee experiments, the opium fields in Afghanistan. I mean, you can go fucking the drug wars
on and
in the
on.
80s.
Yep.
It's nonstop. But what we're really finding out is all these tinfoil hat conspiracy Joes that have been before there were podcasts, before there were people being able to exchange ideas on the internet. And it was just kind of like a fly by the night thing. You would hear some guy like Bob Lazar talk about fucking UFOs, you know, in like Area 51. And everybody's like, oh, he's crazy as shit. It's like, I really think that shit is, I mean, that's a completely different rabbit hole. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're fucking controlled by some of that stuff in a little bit. And I absolutely believe religion stems from those experiences from thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. But it's like these people that we didn't give any credence to. I mean, for example, Bill Maher had goddamn what's her name on from like Rifle, Colorado, the Lauren Boebert.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That tiny little dark-haired gal. He had her on because he was curious about like the Epstein stuff. And he literally admitted on his show that he was fucking wrong about everything. He made fun of it for years and years and years. And here he's got on this little Republican, like, however you feel about Lauren Boebert, like I feel I think I'm not sure how I feel about that gal. She was caught doing some weird shit here in Colorado, in like a movie theater and some other places. And it's like, okay, but Bill Maher was like, hey, like Pizzagate, QAnon, I fucked up. I was wrong. There was a whole bunch of shit there, and we totally didn't take it seriously at all. The whole international pedophilia network and everything, like we fucking blew it off.
And why we're still not taking it fucking seriously, because we want to sit here and point fingers at either fucking side instead of saying like there's a bunch of elite fuckers out there who don't live with the same set of rules. They get to do what they want, and we would rather point fingers at each other than like figure something out, you know? And that's why Clinton and Trump and all these people are just protecting each other. That's why no one in America
it's just like Trump came out, right? Yeah. So it's Clinton testifies, or Clinton's called to testify in front of Congress about the Epstein files. And then Trump literally comes out and says, I don't want Clinton to testify in front of Congress because he's a good guy. Yeah. Like, what the fuck? You literally talked about putting his wife in prison for fucking years.
And
what?
Yeah, and for somehow emails on a computer that got destroyed are more offensive to the conservatives than somebody who's fucking a 13-year-old. It blows my fucking mind.
Dude, this stuff, like the deeper I dive into that stuff and the connections with Mossad and CIA and like how deep and evil and twisted that stuff goes, man, I mean, you know, I mean, frankly, and I talk about the Bill of Rights with reverence, rightfully so, I believe. But I also think that the founding fathers would think we were fucking pussies.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, just, I mean, so we started a war, a rebellion against taxation without representation. And it wasn't against taxes. It was against taxes without representation. Right now it's going off with the tariffs. We're paying those fucking... That's a tax that is handed down to the American people. You know?
Is now.
And
it is now since the Supreme Court wrote it down and like all that stuff you were talking about. Yeah.
Well, and just to touch in what Ty's talking about, if you guys make it this far, Henry Ludwig, who is Trump's, I forget what position he holds in Trump's cabinet, but essentially he wrote these tariffs, right? When he got out of the private sector, he worked for an investment firm called Cantor Fitzgerald. His two sons took over that firm when he got out of the private sector. And what they did is when he wrote these tariffs, his sons, or that company, took over. They started to pay a 10 to 30% on each tariff to insure it. And essentially the insurance was so cheap because their father made it sound like these tariffs were bulletproof, but from the outside, everyone said these tariffs are illegal, these tariffs aren't right. A lot of people said this with the tariffs.
A lot.
And then
a lot of people. I remember.
Mm-hmm. And who's making this money? Because we have to pay these tariffs back now, is his sons in the company that he was a former CEO of. and tell me that's not some like full circle, like that wasn't the fucking plan to begin with. You know, like why would you have your two sons buy insurance bonds on tariffs that if they fail, they're going to get money back from the government unless you knew they were going to fail? It makes no fucking sense.
Hey,
And
do you think
yeah,
Barron's going to
so-
serve in the war?
No, yeah, right. No, I don't. I saw some fucking
he's
dude.
war service, man. He's fucking of the age, homie. Like, homeboy's like 6'5", whatever. Like, let's go.
He's probably got.
You gonna get in there?
He's probably got.
Like, let's
he's
go,
probably got-
homie. You're Mr. fucking Barron Trump. I mean, because my fucking kids, you know, they're a few years away from conscription on stuff like this, but it's like, based on my background, like, I'm like the Legends of the Fall dad, man, where I'm just like, screw them, screw the government, fuck the government, because they're constantly talking about joining the military, constantly. Like, it's a battle for me, because as proud as I would be for them to get, like, to excel and do well at that, and on an individual level, there's a lot to say for that kind of accomplishment, depending on where you would end up. But it's like, dude, I don't want them. I don't fucking trust this system anymore to put my fucking kids' lives in their hands. Like, for them, they're going to do what they're going to do. Just like the three sons did in Legends of the Fall, right? With the dad. They all joined the fucking Canadian Army. They all went and fought in World War I. It was fucking awful. It was exactly like Colonel Ludlow said it was going to be. Colonel Ludlow told them what the fuck was going to happen, and they didn't listen because they're idiot children. Okay? Same shit's going to happen with my fucking kids. I swear to God. Like, I can see it. I can see the forest through the trees with this, and it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy because it's like the reverence they have for, and here's another thing. And like, I really think that my war is kind of like a satellite war. And so if you look at the history of the major wars that we've had in the last 100+ years, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, those were obviously the highest casualty rate wars we had. There were always little preliminary war battles leading up to where all of a sudden we're losing millions of people or 50,000 plus fucking people. And the way with what's happening with Iran right now, with the fact that Tel Aviv's getting fucking hammered, Jerusalem's getting hammered, Bahrain's getting hammered, Dubai's getting hammered, Saudi Arabia embassy in Saudi Arabia is getting hammered, the Arab Emirates is getting hammered. Everything that has an American installation or receives American money is getting hammered. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know, I like, maybe my war was just a satellite war. Like, there could be a time that my boys 10 years from now, because they're balls deep in some serious shit overseas or even here in the country, where they're going to be like, man, dad just fought booger eaters. Like, that's what dad did. Dad's war was fighting booger eaters overseas for a few years because this is a real fucking thing. Like, I'm feeling that right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, the way that we're going with all this stuff with Iran that we're seeing right now, because Iran is just letting her rip, and who knows what the fuck else is going to happen with this. Here's another thing. The command structure is limited. Doesn't mean shit. It's all backfilled. All this stuff is planned out. They've been planning it for a while, because when they originally did the thing like I talked about, when they originally retaliated after Midnight Hammer, it was planned. They said, hey, we're going to hit these bases. Make sure your guys are out of there so you don't lose any casualties, but I got to save face with the Iranian people. I mean, that's pretty much what happened. Shit isn't that way anymore. They're just letting it rip now. They don't give a fuck anymore. Because, I mean, frankly, they've been kind of... We killed all their fucking negotiators, bro. Yeah, all of them.
They have.
Twice. 2 fucking times. And 2 fucking times we kicked them into the well. 2 fucking times. And it's like, of course, what do you think's going to happen? So when the big one hits, the fact that Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Dubai, which is a massive, massive liberal Western place to hang out for the liberal Western elites of society, to have them fucking hammer those places is super intentional. Super intentional. It's a death throw. Like, we're going to make you feel us. And we have no idea. There is no plan for what comes next. There's fucking no plan. There may or may not be boots on the ground. There may or may not be ongoing operations. Like, we absolutely, and this is the thing, like, boots on the ground. Listen, dude, there's tier 1 elements on the fucking ground. Like,
Yeah.
CAG, developmental group, they're on the fucking ground. And they probably have some support structure on the fucking ground too. Like, we 125 million fucking % have boots on the ground. I don't give a fuck what any of these people tell you. We have boots on the ground right now. And we've already lost 4 fucking people that we know of. Like, just get ready.
Right.
When you have a president that tells you to expect more American casualties, they're basically telling you there's going to be more American casualties.
I mean, Trump lies a lot, so I don't know if I could trust him, but I think you're right.
Yeah, dude. It's rough, buddy. You got anything else? You want to call it?
Yeah, let's call on this one. I think it's a good wrap up. We could talk about it for hours.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, love you, man. We'll see what the next
All right,
24
love you
hours
too,
brings.
brother.
I have not had a hellfire
Yeah.
come through my window yet for talking about Israel, but
Yep.
it's still early.
My phone's been acting kind of glitchy, so I might be tapped right now. So, who knows?
Oh yeah. I wouldn't doubt it. They're gonna see one look at your video. They're gonna look at what you got hanging on the wall. They're gonna be like, "This
Right.
guy's an obvious domestic terrorist."
He's on the watch list.
That's what I love about you, man. That's what this is about. Hey, this is America, dude. Like, we're standing for the American project. And I'm going to say this over and over and over again in this fucking podcast a million fucking times. This is about the American project. Period. The end. All this other stuff we're talking about, man, like, this is about reinvesting in the American fucking project. The American project and the American people. This is what this is about. Root over and over and over again. Make no mistake. Exclusively what this is about.
I mean, for me, it's about vesting the American people, finding a common ground within the vision we have right now, and any prevention of innocent lives. So I'm always going to talk about a war, no matter what side it is. If I see, if I see a terrorist bombing a church, if I see a fucking missile hitting a school, I don't care if it's a Muslim, Jew, Christian, our army, their army, I'm going to speak out against it. So,
yeah, well said, brother. I agree 100 million % on top of that. On top of the American project is the protection of innocence. And,
yep.
Yep. I think that's as like righteous as we can get, man. I don't know. That, as far as I'm concerned, means a hell of a lot goddamn more than the individual human that's going to be running the country that I voted for 4 years. Like, that other part of it, that foundational aspect, is a hell of a lot more important. So, love you, buddy.
I agree. All right, love you. Have a good night, man.